What do the preachings of a 17th century Quaker have to do with your rights as an American? Well, an awful lot. Hi, I'm Northern Virginia criminal defense attorney Scott Nolan, and I'm here to talk to you about jury nullification. In the year 1670, a British Quaker by the name of William Penn, as well as another less famous one named William Mead, were arrested in London for preaching their version of the gospel. And they were thrown in jail, and then they were tried. And the trial was supposed to be a typical trial of the day, which was to say not much of a trial at all. The judge told the jury that these two were guilty and asked them to find them guilty in short order. In fact, he didn't so much ask as tell them that they had to be found guilty in short order. The jury refused to convict. They said that Mead and Penn hadn't done anything wrong. Now, clearly these two had broken the law. The law was that they couldn't preach the Quaker faith. They'd done it. They had broken the law. But the jury found that law to be ridiculous, and they refused to enforce it by refusing to return a guilty verdict. And the jury foreman was a guy by the name of Edward Bushell. Now, because he refused to do what the judge told him to do, Bushell himself was thrown into jail. But the law was that the judge couldn't overturn the jury. So there was a lot of political pressure on the judge, who also happened to be the mayor of the city of London, to get Bushell to change the jury's mind. And he indeed threatened in writing to cut Bushell's throat and to cut off his nose if Bushell and the jury didn't find Penn and Mead guilty. And they refused. This case, Bushell's case, was a landmark in Anglo-American law. Now, it wasn't so much American as it was Anglo, but eventually those principles became part of our law as well, that a jury is sacrosanct. The judge does not have the right to threaten a jury, and no other figure has a right to threaten a jury. That when a jury decides someone is not guilty, they're not guilty. And this principle is called jury nullification. That is, the jury has nullified the law. Jury nullification has been very controversial ever since Bushell's case, and it continues to be. But it's a logical outgrowth of the principle of the independence of juries. Juries, from time to time, refuse to enforce the law because they find that the law is unethical. Sometimes, even when the law is absolutely correct, it would be wrong to apply it in a particular person's case. And in those instances, the jury can step in and simply refuse to enforce the law. Now, there's no law in America that says a jury may do this. It's simply the logical consequence of allowing a jury to make its own decisions. Sometimes we can see in American history that this is a great idea. Juries who refuse to enforce fugitive slave laws are a great example. But at the same time, you might also have a jury that refused to punish a white man for attacking a black man. That's obviously bad jury nullification. Cases that are more complex but less obvious go on all the time. When a case simply shouldn't be, in the opinion of the jury, enforced against a particular person, you're going to get jury nullification. Now, why don't defense lawyers just tell juries all the time, hey, you can ignore the law and do whatever you think is right? Well, defense attorneys are not allowed to explicitly instruct juries on jury nullification. However, there is no reason that an American citizen, someone who might one day sit on a jury, can't know, and in fact they absolutely should know, that they have this power and there is nothing wrong with it. It is exactly one of the balancing points of our law. If you are on a jury, you should absolutely follow the law. You should absolutely follow the instructions the judge gives you, unless you reach that point where your conscience simply will not allow you to find someone guilty, because in this particular instance, The correct application of the law will lead to injustice. Juries, you are not there to follow the law. You are there to create justice. 99% of the time or more, that's going to mean rigorously applying the law. Because only in rigorously applying the law can the rest of your fellow citizens feel safe in taking their everyday actions, knowing what is and what isn't legal. But there are those rare times when a rigorous application of the law is simply stupid, unethical, or unjust. And in those cases, you, the jury, have an absolute ethical, moral, and reasonable right to ignore the law and apply justice. You are the very last line of defense. Do not be intimidated. Justice lies ultimately in your hands. Don't drop it. If you have any questions about jury nullification or any other area of the law, feel free to call me. I'd be happy to talk to you about it. And you have a great day.